All right. Well, my name is Jody Geisler, and doing my final project for school business administration, I've been asked to record a video going over several topics that we have covered in the class. And I'll just read the question that has been asked. It says, you've been hired as a brand new school business administrator in your first month. Your school has asked you to research and present to them answers to the questions below. Prepare an informational video to present to them. This video should cast you in a professional light, demonstrating your content knowledge and expertise in these areas. So I'm going to go through a series of questions, and then I'm going to answer based on some research that I did, whether it's the textbooks or I found some other outside sources. And hopefully have a nice little discussion here on some of these topics that deal with school financing, and overall general operations of school districts and school buildings. All right, the first question says, how long should it take to build a new school from planning to completion? So I didn't find an actual necessarily like a number, but I have a good ballpark for how long it should take. So before schools even start with their construction, obviously they need to start from the beginning and do a lot of homework and planning for the referendum vote. According to our textbook, Guthrie et al., districts should determine the need and projected school enrollment for at least the next 5 years, because if you build a school and it's not big enough, that's a big problem. Or if you build a school and there's plenty of empty classrooms, that's also a problem. So school districts need to do the homework well before coming up with a plan. Then they need to determine the location of the school, and land acquisitions need to be made. And then, of course, some cases, schools might be built right on the site of the previous school, if it's a rebuilding of a different school. So in most cases, plans will need to be drawn up, referendum created, and a vote needs to be done. And then, of course, when the land is purchased, an architect needs to be sought out, and school layout needs to have input included from teachers, administrators, and people within the community. The needs of the school district must be met when choosing the building layout, and everything must be done to code. And of course, that's a huge commitment to make. So after the architect has chosen, the plans are then drawn up. Contractors bid on it, and they kind of place an estimate how much it cost, and then of course contractors need to be chosen based on hopefully past performance. And once the architect has chosen, the plans are drawn up. Once the bid is done, of course the contractors also say how long it's going to take. District needs to then pick a contractor. Once the contractor's chosen, then the construction starts, and then oversight from the architect is there as well. And then from start to finish, it should take 3 to 4 years about to plan and then build a new school. In the current community that I'm in, school district, the school district put out or passed the referendum to go ahead and build a school in April of 2016. I went back through the board minutes and looked it up. So April 2016 is when they actually passed the referendum, and let me think here. They are just finishing the high school up, and this fall it'll be ready to go. The elementary school would have been finished and ready to go, but there was a massive explosion that unfortunately happened a few months ago, and so they're delaying it a whole year, which I'm sure it's a headache for the principal and business administrators and everyone involved in this project. But they would have been ready by the fall as well. So that's 2 years after the referendum passed, and of course, I'm thinking at least another year and a half of the planning by the superintendent and so on. So lots of work goes into it. Kind of opened up a can of worms, and I'm kind of impressed by the superintendent of the district I'm in that came up with this plan and helped out with it. So the next question is it reasonable to expect a school building to last 50 years? And from my research that I've done, absolutely, 100%. If it's done right and done well, it should last 50 years. So I found some information on rdh.com, and they talked about the different years that of what should be done and taken proper care of the building. In years 10 to 16, the building it might require exterior paint job. Circulating pumps might need to be redone. Hot water heaters maybe need to replace. By the time the building gets to be 17 to 29 years, sub pumps could need to be taken a look at. Elevators, fire alarm systems may need to be replaced. So all of this should be like a checklist, really. And if you have a building engineer, they can stay on top of this. And of course, principal needs to also be on top of this. So exterior sealants must be looked at and prevent any leaks. By the time the building gets 30 to 49 years, some obsolescence might occur with technology items that need to be replaced. The interior might need to be redecorated, refreshed. Roads and sidewalks might also need to be fixing, and by this time, so the point is, buildings should be able to last well past 50 years, as long as the routine maintenance is taken care of, and as long as the building engineer and principal are on top of the general maintenance, have a nice list of maintenance schedules. And later on in this project, I'm going to be talking about School Dude, and they have a very big list and checklist of what needs to be done, and just on a day-to-day basis with every little part of the school and how to keep that up. So I'll go over it in more detail later on then. Next question. Why are bond referendums so hard to pass? Well, like I said before, is opening up a big can of worms, and there are several situations that need to take place before bond referendums are passed. The school district must have an outside consultant look at the district's ability to take on debt by looking at its credit rating, either through Moody's or any of the credit rating agencies that are out there. The community must agree to raise the money for the new school. A lot of communities need to have a supermajority, and what that means is, roughly 60% of the community must agree that yes, they can vote yes on the referendum for a new school. And some states put a limit on how much debt can be taken on by school districts, and that's according to Guthrie et al., the textbook that we're using. Next question. Are our current economic conditions good or bad for bond issues? And that is an excellent question. It depends on where you're living, and it depends on a lot of things. So our current interest rates are fairly low at the moment. However, many news reports have been saying that in the next year, the Feds will be raising interest rates as the year goes on, to prevent the economy from gaining too much steam, getting too hot. And according to the LA Times, the net assets of money market mutual funds totaled $2.89 trillion as of June 6th, the highest level since the financial crisis in 2008-2009. So, according to the Investment Company Institute, a mutual fund trade group. And then also at Vanguard Group, one of the nation's largest mutual fund providers, net cash flows into money market funds totaled $10.5 billion in the first 4 months of this year, which is nearly twice the about $5.5 billion inflow during the same period last year to $238 billion. So obviously the economy is running very well. Some of the employment rates are low, incredibly low, like some near all-time lows in the last 20 years. It also says that long-term financing is often difficult in some districts with high poverty. So in the current district that I'm in, the we have 48% free reduced lunches for students and a fairly high poverty rate. And so, even despite the difficult economic times, uh, like I said, 2 years ago, they passed a $93 million referendum for a new high school, a new elementary school, and several upgrades to the middle school and other schools in the area, new roofing and so on. So, despite the perception that our community is lower income that I'm living in, and of course it is by the numbers, absolutely, they are able to pass some a very nice referendum, and the school is going to be beautiful, and so really looking at is it do we have tough economic times right now in our community, in the community? Absolutely. However, overall, the unemployment rates are down, and investing is up. So interest rates are still fairly low. So right now it's a decent time to borrow money. All right. So next question: how important is it to maintain facilities in tough economic times? During good times, or during tough times, I should say, it's very easy to neglect facilities and take and not spend the money that you might need because, well, times are okay, or should say times are tough. With however, building maintenance, well, maybe we can overlook this or that. Well, that takes a toll on buildings, and really, in the end, it'll speed up the need for a new building. For example, if the roof is neglected, it might leak, and that leaking might cause some serious problems within the building itself, causing mold or damage to the structure. And so, budgeting money for maintenance is one of those non-negotiables. Has to happen, and having that routine with your building engineer or principal or custodians to follow is unbelievably important if you want to stave off having to purchase the school, because referendums are so difficult to come by and vote on, and getting the community to say yes to a referendum, and rightfully so, because schools are very expensive. You want to get as much as you can out of your current buildings. Next question is, what should a preventative maintenance program look like? And so I got this information from Dude Solutions, and I remember reading through it and thinking, Dude Solutions, what the heck is this? Why is this a legitimate source? And I did a little more research on it, and of course it's School Dude, which my current school, we use School Dude for any issues you might have in the classroom that need to be replaced. Um, and so we actually use School Dude, and I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming our building engineer and principal also use School Dude as far as the routine maintenance. So what should a preventative maintenance program look like? So I got this information from School Dude. And there are several places that need to be included in the routine maintenance, including electrical equipment and the exterior enclosure, the basic grounds, the HVAC system, interior finishes, plumbing, roofing, and then, of course, general site improvements. And this is as of 2018. And for this summer, I've been acting principal at our school, and I've been lucky to see the general maintenance that goes on during the summer. And with the fire alarms, lots of beeping going on the last Thursday that I was working there, and it's very interesting to see, and it's fun to see that they are taking very good care of our building. So an example, I'm going to go through an example here of what routine maintenance would look like on the electrical vault. Not even 100% sure what the electrical vault is, but it has to do with the electrical system. And it just says that ensure that all tools are rated and approved to work on the vault environment. So you're not going to be using anything that's unsafe. Make sure all safety procedures are followed, and regulations as well. So tasks and procedures: lock out all equipment to be serviced. Oil breakers need to be tested, inspected, and procuring oil sample for dielectric analysis, and then protective relays, calibrate and trip test. So those are just some basic things for the electrical. And of course, like I said, I'm not even sure what a lot of that stuff means, not being an electrician. But the building engineer perhaps would hire an outside electrician or do it themselves if they are qualified to do so. So just having that list and following through it with fidelity and making sure that you have routine maintenance, and this is just an example for electrical. All right, and I got that from School Dude, of course, and like I said, School Dude is really good website for this, and they have tons of information on this and what should be done for schools. Next question: what are some ways our school district can conserve energy? And according to the Alliance to Save Energy.org or ASE.org, they have lots of tips for saving energy in schools, and I've also looked at several other websites, and they're generally the same. Lighting, according to this website, 50% or nearly 50% of the electric bill is lights. So making sure that lights are shut off every day when they're not used. I know the school that I work at, we have automatic lighting in most rooms. So you walk in, it'll turn on. Unfortunately, you walk out, it does take 5-10 minutes for it to shut off, and so perhaps that could teachers could be encouraged to shut off lights on your way out. Don't necessarily rely on the automatic lights. However, automatic lights would be great for if a teacher or custodian or someone walks out of a room and forgets to shut them off. They wouldn't stay on all weekend or stay on all night. They would shut off. So that's a nice feature to have. You could put signs up saying, just friendly reminder, make sure you shut off lights before or after leaving your room, and you could save quite a bit. Just remember that a lot of the money that is being spent is from the community, and as a teacher, I take that money spent very seriously. We can't be wasting community money, and looking at conserving energy is pretty important. So you could put light switches where people can find and operate them, put a little sign next to them, just friendly signed. Unneeded light fixtures near windows, like you probably don't need those, or you could just not have lights there. Use energy efficient light bulbs, and if it's a big school, of course, that's going to pay dividends immediately. Not much per light bulb, but if you have hundreds and hundreds of light bulbs, it's going to add up quite a bit. Having students calculate energy savings by replacing those light bulbs, incandescent bulbs, with CFLs. So heating and cooling, going on to that, you could save on energy. Usually, rule of thumb is placing the heat on at 68 in the winter time, and during the summertime you could put it on 78. Honestly, the school that I'm working at, we have air conditioning, but it doesn't go on even during the very hot months. So you can use fans, I guess, and we'll go, that's it. So, 78 degrees for cooling. I know my personal home, we have it at about 73, 74. And it goes on quite a bit. So you can, and as a principal, I think if there's a lot of school activities going on in a building, you could set it at 78 in case you did need, if it really got super hot, very hot and humid, then you could put it on just to get the humidity out of the building. Looking for that easy access for teachers if they have a problem with the building or a problem with their classroom. Having a system like School Dude, like we have at our school, you can put a School Dude request in, and if a classroom is too warm or too cold, you can easily put a School Dude request in and have the building engineer or custodian come in and fix that, figure out what's the problem. I know my classroom for about a solid year was very hot in the wintertime, and I believe it was some kind of governor on the heating got locked into being fully open no matter what I set my classroom at. So anyways, the heat was always on full blast, and the custodian came in and it out near the ceiling at about 93 degrees, and down on the ground where we were at, it was probably in the mid 80s at least. So the building engineer came in, found out the problem, and fixed it. And now my classroom is much more comfy in the wintertime. It's a little chilly, but I can wear a sweatshirt. It's not too bad. So if it's cold or drafty or super warm like my classroom was, having that opportunity to notify your custodians or engineers to come in and fix that. Any venting that is there, make sure it's not, there's nothing blocking it, making sure that it works properly if it's forced air. And then turning down the heat in the hallways, making sure classroom doors are shut. So looking at, you can clean furnace filters regularly, stopping leaks, making sure there's any leaks that you need to get fixed, make sure you fix those. Avoid infiltration in conditioned spaces, looking at holes in insulation, making sure that, those general maintenance routines are done with fidelity. And if you do those, a lot of these issues will take care of themselves. I know computers is a major thing right now in schools, obviously, but plugging them in takes up a lot of electricity. So in our school, we have about 1,000 kids, and we are one-to-one with laptops for students. So that's 1,000 laptops plugged in at night, and every night, and that's a lot of electricity. We have laptop carts, so not every laptop is obviously charging at once, and so that's important to have. Otherwise, I don't know if it would have been feasible. But so making sure that laptops are shut off when they're needed, and just having students put their laptops to sleep between classes, so then it doesn't take up as much energy. So saving that energy there. Let's see here. If the school is purchasing equipment, purchasing energy efficient equipment, which can really help out a lot as well. In the cafeteria, making sure that the refrigerator coils are taken care of, involving the whole district in this process too, not just in an isolated building, making sure the entire district's a part of this. And in that case, districts can save a lot of money if they're doing routine maintenance with fidelity, and of course looking at conserving energy as well. All right, next question. What should our school district do in the realm of heightened security? And unfortunately, this is a problem that must be dealt with. And there's been obviously a lot of violent intruders in schools, and unfortunately shootings that happen far too often. Just one happened last week. Unfortunately, there will probably be another one that happens in the coming school year. So we've made some changes in my current district. I'm just going to go over those. And we've done some violent intruder training where teachers have gone in and knowing how to barricade a room, knowing what you should do in the event of a violent intruder. Last summer, the police department came in, and the principals worked with the police department, even firing blank rounds at the end of a hallway to see if you could hear it. And lo and behold, you couldn't really hear at the end of the hallway. So what you should do if you hear firing gunshots, where you should go as far as evacuating students. We changed I guess part of our referendum was changing our the way people came into our building, and improve that. So people have to come into one entrance. They have to go into the office. They have to be let in 2 different locked doors, and check in the office. And so that's a nice safety feature that we have. And so we also have a police liaison officer that is right in our building. And so that's a nice feature to have. And we have also included our local police police officers, I guess, come into our buildings more often and have more of a footprint in the buildings, which is nice too. And let's see here. There's a lot of interior doors that we have going into, like, into outside courts, and we walled those right up, and so there's no gaining access there, which is nice. And all doors are locked during the day. Of course, like I said before, teachers and staff undergo violent intruder training, and we also included the students and parents. We notified parents that said, we're going to do violent intruder training, and parents are very receptive to that. And like I said, unfortunately, we have to do it. So we had, just like we have fire drills, we had a violent intruder drill where we had a police officer dressed in a certain color and try to gain access to the building, and whoever saw that person had to make a call on the our intercom system, and just try to give as much information as they could. And I just took my students right out of the classroom and outside and said, this is where we're going to go, and wrote down some notes that we wrote down some notes and some feedback as well. And I found it interesting that one of the doors I was trying to get out of actually had some stuff in front of it, so I had to move it out of the way, and that really caused a slow up. And if unfortunately that would ever happen, man, that would be terrible if you couldn't get out as fast as you can. So in my classroom now, I keep my doors as open as possible with access to them. Let me see here. So the students were involved with violent intruder training, and parents are notified. We use ALICE, Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate, the ALICE training that we've had. And we've been trained on it with teachers and administrators, support staff. Everyone's been trained on it. And by this coming school district year, the support staff and substitute teachers will also be trained on it. And our state of Wisconsin actually has put out a nice little grant for more funding for violent intruders. And our school, in particular, school district, I believe, got about $150,000 more for more features that we can use. I'm not sure what they'll be spending it on, but we'll be making our buildings safer. And even with these safety procedures, it's still a highly sensitive subject, and this is something that we really need to, schools as a whole need to make some improvements on, making sure that our students are safe. That's goal number one for every school: keep our kids safe. Next question: what is the largest personnel challenge we face? And that really depends on schools, I guess. And for the school district I'm in right now, I have found that having proper funding, and lower income districts tend to fall short of having properly certified teachers, especially the rural districts. Especially in northern Wisconsin, I look at some districts. I won't name them necessarily, but I see in the papers that are struggling to keep doors open. I have a sister-in-law that works in a school district in northwest Wisconsin, and they don't have summer school. They can't afford it, and so that funding really puts a damper on having access to high-quality teachers, unfortunately. Not to say there aren't great teachers in those schools, but having a lot of high qualified teachers could be an issue. So I looked at some news websites. According to usanews.com, so schools and school districts that serve large proportions of poor students have historically been shortchanged when it comes to things like access to high quality educators, advanced course offerings like AP classes, early education programs like 4K, and school counselors, resources that are directly linked to the amount of funding available. And that's shocking to me, absolutely shocking, and should not be an issue. So looking at funding, I also found, according to Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, the cbpp.org. So looking at, let me see here, this is 2015, and K through 12 education funding. So state revenue provided 47% of the budget, or covered 47% of the budget. Federal revenue counted just 8% of the budget, and local revenue, local taxes, right around 45% of the budget, and that's give or take depending on the district that you're in and the state that you live in, of course. And so looking at, local revenue, if there is a high poverty area, local revenue is not going to be as much as a lower poverty area. And so that's technically an inequality. So how can looking at state revenues perhaps cover some of those shortfalls? I don't know. Some smaller districts. How can state revenues cover some of those shortfalls in hiring highly qualified educators? And I just look at it as on our parents and grandparents, they had high quality education in those smaller districts, and so why can't our current kids have high quality education in those smaller districts? Why are we pulling the ladder up on some of these kids? And I think we can look at where we can make up some of that money, those money shortfalls. So I think we owe it to our students in those smaller districts, in those lower income districts, need to be properly financed. And I say, so for personnel issues, I think that's our biggest personnel issue right now in some of our districts, especially our smaller districts. All right, next question. Why is staff evaluation important? So having a proper job training and orientation in effective school districts is unbelievably important. The district I'm currently in, I was really lucky. We had a week-long orientation, mandatory. We got paid for it, and excuse me. And we learned everything we needed to learn about the new district. We also got a mentor to help us in the building that we're in, and the mentors got paid for it. And as a mentee, it was very nice to be able to go to someone with questions on just anything, whether when do we get paid, to when do stipends come in, and so on. And according to the textbook, that kind of mirrored what we're doing in my current district, which is awesome. A new employee should be brought up to speed on overall district mission and how they'll contribute personally, so they feel valued. How are those teachers, support staff going to be helping towards the goal of the mission? And according to the textbook, Guthrie et al., new employees should be oriented around basic benefit packages, insurance, sick leave, maternity, paternity, vacation schedules, medical, and hospital beliefs. That's according to page 280, right in the textbook. And that is the training that I received, which is awesome. In-service training should support the district mission, and it shouldn't isolate each building. Each building, they're all part of the bigger mission, contributing to the mission, vision, values, and goals, and in district initiatives. Once everyone's working towards a shared goal, teachers and administrators do feel like a team working towards a shared goal. And supervision of instruction should support teachers in specific areas that help the district out in those district goals and mission as well. So supervision of instruction is unbelievably important too, and when done well and done correctly. So why is risk management important? I also looked at the textbook for this. I think it was module 6 that we had a little bit of reading on risk management. So it is important to keep the revenue pool filled at all times. Meaning, when times are good, it's easy to drain the revenue pool and say we need to spend on this, or this. And then when times are bad, when that pool is not very full, it becomes empty very quickly. So keep it on top of that. When times are good, the pool should be quite full. When times are bad, there should be enough liquidity to support the school district, plenty of liquidity on hand and cash, making sure that you're able to pay off your bills and your debts. It's also important to plan ahead, knowing when expenditures are going to happen, and so school districts can be prepared. Perhaps when maybe if a recession is being perhaps coming up, needing to be prepared for that. So according to Guthrie et al., cash flow forecasting should be based upon explicit assumptions of enrollment, staffing, salary levels, program costs, and other expected expenditures. Revenue forecasting likewise should be based on explicit assumptions of local property valuation, tax rates, tax delinquency and abatements, and other local sources of revenue, such as tuition, fees, and investment income. And that's page 255. In other words, the business part of a school district does much more than I originally thought. It is very important to stay on finances. Make sure you know what you're gonna owe, and what you what you owe, when you owe it, when times are gonna be good, and when times are gonna be bad. Making sure that pool can be filled at all times. So risk management is really important. And then if you're going to invest any funds, making sure that you're investing on AAA type securities or bonds, and so then you're not risking a lot of money. Even though 2008 financial crisis, a lot of AAA securities went default. I'm hoping by now our rating agencies like Moody's and Standards and Poor have fixed those problems that they've had in the past. And AAA rated securities are hopefully safer than they were back then. So risk management is important. Like I said, you need to get that pool filled. Make sure you have liquidity on hand. Next question: what should the goals of school transportation system be? I went through several different districts' transportation goals, and I found a couple of examples, and very similar. Most districts had as goal number one bus safety. You need to have a safe environment on the bus, just like in the classroom. Rules are the same, especially on the bus. It's a little more difficult to have supervision on the bus when the bus driver is driving. So bus safety. Let me see here. Make sure front and rear evacuation drills. Having pre and post annual inspections. In-service training for bus drivers. Bus stop monthly reviews measured by loading and unloading zones. I know in my district we have a principal or teacher out in the loading and unloading zones every single day, and to monitor that area. Monthly reviews, bus discipline referrals, just like in the classroom, and same as my this district I'm in right now. We have that as well. Efficient routing. You need to be efficient because, like I said, some districts can't afford to lose money, and really no district can. And so being efficient with your routing and not wasting gas and wasting salary. Let's see here. Any route changes that happen need to be notified, of course, notifying the parents. Customer service, parents need to be up to date on what's going on with transportation. Those are kind of the three big goals that I had, that I found. All right. So next question is, what is the greatest challenge for today's school food service operations? Lots of challenges, and I'm going to use the example from my current district is providing food for all students, supper for all students in my district. Unfortunately, as I read in the textbook, Guthrie et al., for many kids, their best meals are at school. And, that's a sad fact, but it's a fact. And providing a supper for all students, I think, is very important right now in the current district I'm in. There's not supper for all kids. If they're riding a bus, there's not time. And so we're working on it because the food that we give out, they can't bring on the bus. And I think that is probably not a good idea anyway, bringing the food on the bus. That's going to be a huge mess. No matter how much you emphasize keeping it clean, it probably wouldn't work. So, having that time for kids to go down for 5-10 minutes and eating, we're looking at providing that, and that's a significant hurdle right now with our food service. Otherwise, right now we have free breakfast for all kids and free supper, and then lunch. Of course, we have for some kids free reduced depending on the need. So, what's the greatest challenge for today's and for our current district? That was the biggest question for our incoming fifth graders orientation was, what about supper? Do bus kids have a chance to eat supper? Right now it's no. And a lot of kids unfortunately won't get supper. And so that's a big problem. Next question: what are the pros and cons of technology use in school? So, I looked around all over on the web and I found a lot of similar things, and I saw a lot of. I guess I found a lot of what is said on this website on tophead.com is absolutely true in the school district that I'm in. Since like I said before, we have one-to-one laptops. Every kid has a laptop, and there's the good and the bad parts of it. So I'll start with pros. Using technology in the classroom allows you to experiment more in pedagogy and giving kids instant feedback, which is great, especially in writing. The writing can give them some instant feedback they can look at. Technology in the classroom helps ensure full participation, so it does increase student engagement as long as it's done well. There are plenty of resources to enhance education, making learning more fun and effective. Absolutely, that's the case. For example, in my classroom, I teach a little bit geography, so there's maps that you can go on and mapping games, and learning different countries and different states is just getting a base of knowledge for an area, knowing what countries are in East Asia, is fairly important before you study it. So we do spend a little bit of time, not a crazy amount of time, but just a little bit of time doing that. Let's see here. Technology can automate a lot of tedious tasks like grading, giving feedback. It can really help in that process. Tedious tasks like monitoring student laptops as they're being used. We can do that right on my laptop, which is great. So those little tasks can help speed it up. With technology in the classroom, students have instant access to fresh information. So fresh information is amazing. Newspaper articles on topics that we're doing is great as well. YouTube as well is another good resource. There's really good YouTube channels that students can go on and look at current events or discussions. TED Talks are great too. So this might be the most important one. It says that we live in a digital world and technology is a life skill. Learning to use technology properly is so important. Using it properly is very important, since your kids are going to be doing it. Kids, especially nowadays, have access to technology since they can remember. So using it properly is unbelievably important. Some of the cons: technology in the classroom could be a distraction. Some kids are addicted to the internet and addicted to things, and it's a distraction, and I've seen that firsthand. Technology can disconnect students from social interactions, so talking to each other, sometimes you gotta shut the laptop, put the phone away, and talk to each other and discuss back and forth. A lot of those life skills are already built in the Common Core standards, which I really like a lot. Speaking and listening are very underrated. Technology can foster cheating in the class and on assignments. I haven't seen that as much of an issue, but that could be a problem. Students don't have equal access to technology resources like at home. I don't give homework partially for this reason, because some students don't have access to it. Quality of research and sources may not be top notch, so finding proper resources, that's also part of the standards. The new Wisconsin social studies standards that I teach is looking at proper resources, and so that's something I teach them. Knowing there are certain resources like Snopes that you can go to see if a certain news topic is real or not. Lesson planning can become more labor intensive with technology, which could be the case. It might not, though. I guess it depends on what you're looking at. But the quality research, that's something that I tend to do every year as teaching part of the standards, is looking at a website that is technically not actual news. And so the kids I'll say, well, which news story is real? And they'll have to do some research on it, and looking at those skills and knowing the resources like Snopes and so on. So this concludes my final project in school business administration. Lots of topics that I talked about here. Actually took a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I like this class a lot, learned a lot, and thank you for listening.